Have you ever wanted to start making a TCG but didn't have a clue where to start? Well, today we're going to be using the help of ChatGPT to make a TCG from scratch. That's a lot of letters in that one sentence right there. So yes, we're going to be making a trading card game. We're going to be enlisting the help of some AI to see how it works. And I know this can be controversial. Some people don't like AI and some people think it's a handy tool. Today we are making a trading card game. So here are some steps and considerations to help guide the process. Right, so we haven't even prompted it to ask any questions or anything yet. We've just told it what we're planning on doing, and it is already dived in with a nice list, and I do like my lists. So number one, concept development, theme and settings. Decide on the theme, e.g. fantasy, sci-fi, historical, and the setting, e.g. medieval kingdom, outer space. And then the storyline, create a backstory or lore to give context to the game. So I suppose, yes, the theme is very important. The theme is what's going to draw people into your TCG. Card design really comes later. It's okay if you want to start making your TCG by just designing cards. Sometimes just going through that process, just drawing fun characters, drawing layouts of card designs, sometimes it leads to other steps that you don't quite know how to get to, so it inspires. So you create like a really cool dragon card, and then that dragon makes you go, actually I want the whole TCG about dragon. So now you've found the theme, so your theme is all dragons, and then you just go with basic, I don't know, 4 elements. So you go earth, fire, water. Is that right? Earth, fire, water, air? Yeah. And then from that you've got, okay, so now my TCG is elemental dragons. You're going to have dragon riders, and you're going to go in with your dragon riders, and if you lose your dragon rider, your dragon doesn't get a buff, so then you have to enlist a new dragon rider to use your dragon. Your dragon rider might have an element that it synchronizes with, so you want the right element dragon to go with the right element rider, and then it all flows from just sketching a dragon. So that's my long-winded example here. But what I really want to focus on today is the game mechanics of a trading card game. How to actually get the game to flow correctly. So let's take a look. So number 2 actually is game mechanics. Okay, so objective. Define the win condition for the game. How does a player win? Yes, the win condition is absolutely the most important thing of a TCG. When you play any game at all, normally it'll be the first or second question you will ask is, how do I win the game? Think about it. Think about it for a moment. That is what you ask, because what's the point of playing a game if it isn't to try and win? Yes, you want to have fun on the way, but you don't go, how is this game fun? You say, how do I win? Because you know winning equals fun. What is the win objective or win condition, right? So the win condition, reducing the opponent's life points to 0, just like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Decking out pretty much like in every single TCG, I think, except 1 or 2. Collecting elemental tokens. Okay, here's something a bit different. Let's have a read of this one. Okay, so players collect tokens representing control over elemental forces. The first player to collect a set number of tokens wins. So mechanics, elemental tokens earned by performing specific actions such as defeating enemy dragons, completing quests, or controlling certain terrains. And victory, the first player to collect a predetermined number of elemental tokens, e.g. 5 tokens, win the game. Okay, that's interesting. Is instead of like a ticking points down, you're just ticking points up. It can be done through taking out things, but you're adding tokens to the game, which means there are extra parts to the game. A lot of people like to keep their TCGs nice and lean. And by keeping them nice and lean, we don't want to clutter it with a load of tokens. Okay, even though you only need, say, 5 of them, that's okay. You are allowed tokens in your TCG. Don't worry. Shard TCG has tokens in their TCG. Sure, TCG has a lot of tokens in their TCG, but it's because we wanted to try all of the tokens. We wanted to see exactly what we could do with every single type of token so we can learn from it. That is a part of your process. If you're thinking about building a TCG from scratch, try to think about how you could make the most cluttered TCG you could possibly make, and then start stripping it back, you know? Because you soon start to notice exactly how much stuff isn't necessary to make a good game. So another suggestion for win conditions is controlling the battlefield. So players must control a certain number of specific types of cards on the battlefield to win. So yeah, you could say that you need a dragon of every element. Though if people want to focus down a certain elemental line to make like a cool like fire dragon deck or lightning dragon deck, then it's a little bit annoying if you have to incorporate other dragons that don't fit the flavor or theme of your TCG deck. So AI is looking impressive, but it still has its limitations. For instance, the AI can't hit that like button. That is something that you have to make the decision and actively do yourself. I know it is a bit of a drag, but until AI can get to that level of sophistication, we are forced to do it ourselves. So if you would be so kind as to hit that like button today, I will appreciate it so much. Thank you. So now it's gave us a broad layout of what to do with a TCG. We're going to prompt it for a few more specifics. So let's just say we're going to go with the dragon idea. So elemental dragons TCG. In a can't spell elemental. Elemental. So I haven't even asked it a single question yet. I'm just giving it information. This is how we go. It's nice and slow. We fill out what the ChatGPT needs to know, and then we'll start asking the questions. So this sounds like a fantastic and visually striking theme. Here's a detailed guide to help you develop. The card types it's suggesting is dragon cards. Makes sense. Elemental spell cards. I like that, you know, and mix the elemental spells with the dragons. Maybe it changes the elements of the dragons. Keeps things like fresh and interesting. Maybe all dragons have different forms, so you can play a dragon and then give it a fire form, and then give it a lightning form, and then give it an earth form. That sounds pretty good. And then resource cards used to summon dragons and cast spells. Could be elemental energy cards. Right, so it's already suggesting a resource system. So I'm going to ignore this for now. What do we want for a resource system? So I'm just going to say I don't want resource cards for my TCG. Can you suggest an alternative? There we go. Let's see what comes out when I click enter. Or this. Oh, it's getting there. Give it a sec. Have I broke it? There we go. I had to send it twice there for some reason. Right. So turn-based energy accumulation. Let's see what they say with this. So this sounds a bit like stockpiling. Each player gains a certain amount of energy each turn automatically, which they can use to summon dragons and cast spells. Mechanics, energy points, EP. So they've even got like little alliterations. So that's a good little prompt. So if you're making your game, you could write EP on the card instead of energy points. Good way to save space. So there's another little note that the AI is helping us with. So players start with a base number of EP and gain additional EP at the start of each turn. You can also do summoning costs. Each dragon and spell cards has an EP cost. Players must have enough EP to play these cards. Okay. And an energy accumulation example. So turn 1 you get 3 EP, turn 2 you get 6 EP, turn 3 you get 9 EP, and so on, increasing by 3 each turn. Yeah, because if you have it stack accumulatively like that, then it allows a natural snowballing effect where at the start of your game there's very limited things that you can do, but towards the end when you're gaining 9-12 EP compared to the 3 EP at the start, you can start summoning like 4 times as much, can't you? So with 4 times as much, you have much higher capability of going in for that final strike to take out your opponent, thus coming to a natural end to the game where you have achieved your win condition, which is what we were talking about earlier, is the very first thing that we want to focus on. Alright, so I'm not sure about this one. So, summoning restrictions. Players can only summon dragons whose level is equal to or less than their current level. I get that to stop runaway play, but if you are being pinned back, your opponent is constantly blitzing you, then you won't have the high level dragons. Therefore, you won't be able to use that catch up. If you are limited by your opponent but for what you can bring out as a level dragon, so if your opponent has a level 1 dragon that it's leveled up to level 3, then I could bring out a level 3 dragon right away as a catch up mechanic to help keep the game close. So that would make sense if you're looking at the whole field of play and not just your own field of play, because that is something else you really need to consider with TCGs, which I've went on before. I've done previous videos. I'll put one above my head right now. Catch up mechanics. You need to make sure that your game has certain catch up features built into the game to prevent runaway play. If you get runaway play, people won't enjoy your game. People will see who is winning the game in the first turn or two, and then they will quit because they know there is no way they can come back from it. Where if there are catch-up mechanics, even if the other player is ahead for now, you know that there are certain things built into the game where you can swing to actually take the advantage. Right, and we are going to move on to the fun part now, the battle system. So let's get some prompts for the battle system. Battle system for my TCG. Let's get some little hints there. I didn't even put in the form of a question, but I still expect an answer because the AI just knows. It's quite intuitive. Right, so let's take a look. Setup phase. So decks. Each player shuffles their deck and draws an initial hand of 5 cards. That's normally a pretty standard number. Oh, we haven't even went into draw system yet. So the ChatGPT has prompted me. I need to ask about different draw systems. We'll get onto that in a bit. So, declare attack. The attacking player chooses which of their dragons will attack and which enemy dragon or the opponent directly. Defender reaction. The defending player may choose to block with their dragons or activate any defensive abilities. Compare the attacking dragon's attack to the defending dragon's health. Right, so what the AI has assumed here is that I will be doing a separate life points to attack points, where I might just be wanting to go with a mono value system. I know that's not an official name for it, but it kind of makes sense. So when you have one number to represent the strength of the card. So it might just be this card has a value of 10. That means if you can hit higher than 10, it dies. But it can also hit you for 10. All the values are tied into 1. And that normally ties into TCGs where you're using multiple cards on the front line of the field. Because take Pokemon, for example. You do have the back row bench there. That's fine. But you only have one active Pokemon at this time. That means that one active Pokemon is your focus, which also means you can have multiple values on that card without it getting too cluttered. You're calculating one creature, one Pokemon with multiple values. So you can look at the hit point and you can look at the attack and then you can look at a second attack and then you can look at resistances and other values like that. It's not too much clutter. But if Pokemon worked like Yu-Gi-Oh, where you could have up to 5 creatures on your front line, all able to attack and defend and things like that, and you've got like at least 4 of those values that I've just represented there, 2 attacks, a health, and a resistance, and that all has to be calculated when doing combat. Our brains like a challenge, but our brains don't want to deal with that every single turn. Let's just not do that. So what it is saying here is with abilities. Each dragon may have unique abilities that can be activated during combat or other phases. E.g., Fire Dragon's Burn ability deals additional damage over time. if you're going to tick up additional damage over time, that is a memory game. You have to remember that it's doing that. And then what if it's got a cap, so it only does it for 3 turns? Guess what? You have to remember how many times you've done that. So if other damage has been on there, you can't backtrack and go, well, I'll just work it out from the damage that's been done, because other things have interfered with it. So now it is a very hard memory game to actually do. You have to make things quite simple. So one thing I would suggest is, what is it called? Light Seekers. One of their main features was having a card tick down around. Hang on, I have a card. Right, I just happen to have a Light Seekers pack. Right, so this is how they worked it. I figure we'll use a Light Seekers card. Oh, I pulled a shiny as well. Oh, right. So a Light Seekers card, if they had an ability, the ability might work over certain phases. So then when the card was being repositioned like this, it represented the phase of the ability, and then they would be able to go again. That's just a quick, probably not a very accurate example of how it worked, but I just thought you might find that interesting, because then you know the time that has passed. You can go up to essentially 4 turns. You could say this works for 2 turns. Then you know if that card is face down, 2 turns have passed. 1, 2. Just going by 90-degree angles. Just another way of looking at games, and something that I would like to incorporate into a game in the future. I think it would work quite well, probably as an alternative to the ritual thing, where we're using lots and lots of tokens stacked up on ritual cards. It would be better to just have rituals tick like that. So like I said, so far it looks like the AI is generating a very tough memory game right now, because they're talking about healing up cards, adding burn effects to cards, life point counting as well. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, so we want to strip that back. I want a simple battle system that resets at the end of the turn. Now let's see what they suggest now, because this should be a lot simpler. Declare attack. The attacking player chooses which of their dragons will attack and which enemy dragon or the opponent directly. Okay. If hit points drop to 0 or below during the attack, the dragon is defeated and sent to the graveyard. So damage reset. At the end of the turn, all dragons' hit points are restored to full value. Right, so they haven't really changed it that much, you know. They've basically just added my node, and it looks like they've stuck with everything else being the same. Okay, so sometimes the AI doesn't fully understand what we get. I mean, it has altered it. It does know, but I was wanting something a bit different. That's all. Okay, so the final thing I'm going to do, because we're just really covering the basics today, I'm going to look at card drawing systems. Different card drawing systems for a TCG. Let's see what it's going to suggest. And if these aren't any good, remember I do have a video on card drawing systems. I'll put that above my head now, so you can click that if you want. But let's see what they have here. So stand draws. Players draw a fixed number of cards at the beginning of their turn. Very simple. That's great. So yeah, draw 1 card, start your turn. Yes, but a lot of TCGs like to play lots of cards. So then you have to start incorporating cards within your game that you can play to then bring out more cards. So I like to have a little bit more to it than just a typical draw 1 type of card game. So resource-based drawing. So this is what we have in Shard TCG. We have mana. You've got 5 mana. You can draw 5 cards. We then incorporate with draw up to 5. So draw power is very powerful in Shard TCG, but it helps the game start to get moving a lot faster. So if you have any sort of resource system in your TCG, think about whether you want to spend some of that resource to be able to get additional card draws. Just an idea. Deck thinning. This one I haven't heard of. Players draw cards from a reduced deck size or have access to modified drawing mechanisms. Draw from discard pile. Players can shuffle their discard pile into their deck once it's empty, allowing them to draw from a smaller recycle deck. Okay, that's one way to do it, you know. I wouldn't say it's like a typical or exciting way. Sometimes it's good to know that you're getting really low on that deck size. Being able to just replenish it by tapping into a discard pile, I'm not as keen on that. You know, I like the ticking time bomb of the deck getting actually thinner. Hand size limit, implement rules that restrict the maximum number of cards in a player's hand, influencing their drawing strategy. Yeah, because you don't want them to overdraw because then they're forced to discard. But then I've seen other games that have no hand drawing limit, and then it gets ridiculous because eventually you can have half a deck in your hand, which will only make the game flow a little bit more. Though the players starts to slow down because the extra choices in the hand means that they have to think longer before they play it. So I guess it is about balancing. You know, it's whatever fits best for you. I've seen it work both ways. I've seen the good sides of it and I've seen the bad sides of it. Event driven draw. Now this is interesting, right? So event driven draw means that there's something that happens within the game. Say you, every time you play a new creature to the field, you are allowed to draw an additional card. So I summon a dragon, I get to draw a free card because I've summoned something to the field. That's nice, but that can also slow down gameplay because you're getting new input in the middle of the game. Suddenly the strategy that you've decided to go with might change, and then you have to go back to that thinking time again. So then the game doesn't flow as well, unfortunately. So sometimes it's better to just get a good bit of card draw out of the way at the start of your turn and then just say no card draw at all for the rest of your turn, therefore speeding up gameplay. So ChatGPT is just saying goodbye to everybody now. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I've had a lot of fun. You will have had a lot of fun if you've made it to the end of the video. And don't forget, if you haven't already, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you are new and you want to see more content like this. And I will see you next time. I've been James. Goodbye.